Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuhu. I hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to this little mini reminder. I read this quote by Ibn al-Jawzi, which I love, and I feel like if you, inshallah, take this and walk with it in your life, and we all do, then inshallah it can be of much benefit if Allah allows. So the quote says, "When true fear of God is realized in your heart, all good things will come to you." I love this quote so much, and I feel like if you really apply this in your life, your world really changes. At first glance, when we hear about fear, people kind of have like that negative, scary, big image of fear, right? Fear might sound limiting to some people, might sound paralyzing to some people. But when you get to know who Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, that word fear, of course, He's the one who's capable of punishment. And of course, He is the most powerful. But we also learn that that same quote, quote, word of fear can create like this deep reverence, this deep love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your heart, and this awareness of Allah's greatness and mercy. We need that balance, right? A lot of times people try to diminish that balance, but in that balance is where we truly find, this balance, I guess you could say, and walk with it in your personal life, and of course in your journey to Islam and in the Akhirat, inshallah. So whenever people hear fear, I think it's kind of important to remember that it isn't necessarily something that's that you have to think of in a way that's going to shrink you. It elevates you. It reorders your chaos. It makes more sense of your life, right? When your heart truly fears Allah, everything else around you starts to lose its grip. And if you don't see it already, unfortunately, all of us in one way or another have a lot of dunya things that have a strong grip over us. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but if we're not making decisions that align with Islam and those things, then that's a very big problem, right? When you wake up first thing in the morning, you have so many thoughts about work and school and your kids and job and whatever. And all of these things expect you to perform your 110% best, which is of course okay, but it comes to a point where there's so many expectations and there's so many things that is expected out of you that it could be that among those lines you start to worry about pleasing those things, pleasing those people that are in charge of those things more than pleasing Allah. And of course no one directly says that with their mouth or says that that's their intention. It's just that when we say Islam is a way of life, that means choosing Islam on every single little turn we take. That's how it adds up. The small steps add up to the big ones. Islam is not something you just do in your bedroom, you pray and then that's it, and then you live your life however you wish. When we say it's a way of life, we integrate it in all things that we do and in all decisions that we make. So when our heart truly fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it allows us to not be enslaved to other people's opinions, to their fleeting goals, to the noise of the world as a whole. And your heart starts to kind of steady, like a ship, and it kind of helps it go through all of those different storms and all those different things. It's not that the storm will go away, it's just that your ability to handle it will get better. And of course, through that, we also get the opportunity to kind of live a more intentional life, where we make those decisions about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more and more. Because when that fear is in your heart, you think twice about what you're about to do and why you're about to do it. So I want to share with you some general tips that you can walk away from on how you can, inshallah, through Allah's will and through His mercy, help cultivate that fear in your heart. One of the things I highly recommend is taking a piece of paper, writing on that piece of paper this question that says, how will I please Allah today? Every single day when you wake up, that should be the first thing you read, and that should be the first thing you ask yourself. This question shifts your entire framework from a self-centered to God-centered type framework. It turns your daily actions into worship. It turns your studying, your caretaking, you just even walking away from sin, even your silence, into something that could be pleasurable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, okay? And of course, before all these tips, I would say to first make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Him to purify your intentions and ask Him to put that fear in your heart, because truly He's the only one that controls our hearts and He can allow those things. But on your end, if there's some other steps you want to do, this is one of them I'd recommend, is take that piece of paper and write, how will I please Allah today? Read that every day and genuinely try to answer it. Because when you have so many things in this dunya that want to pull you in 100 different ways and want to, unfortunately, let's be real, this dunya wants you to lose your morals, to play the game like everyone else plays it. But you as a Muslim know that your morals and who you are, your principles, is grounded deep within you. These are not things that we are going to sacrifice or give up for a worldly gain. The second thing I'll tell you is try to truly recalibrate yourself through your salah. Don't just perform your prayer, truly try to feel it. Let each sajda be a reminder that you are a small, flawed person, okay? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is perfect. And through his kind generosity, he can allow you to have that fear of him within you. And of course, that fear of Allah grows when we constantly stand before him, knowing that he sees all, yet he still welcomes us back to him every time. The third thing I'll tell you is that you need to have something in your day to remind you about the hereafter. Whether it's reading or listening to something each day that softens your heart, if it's an ayah about Jannah, if it's a hadith about the Day of Judgment, a story about a companion who lived in the awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need something that's going to constantly remind us of the akhirat, because we consume so much self-help and self-better and, how to do this and how to do that content in our life. And that's good. We want to be our best selves. So when we show up on the Day of Judgment, we performed our best, we did our best with whatever Allah had given us through his mercy, right? But we need to kind of step back for a second and remember, where am I going? And that's why I feel like, in particular, I feel like watching lectures and reading things about the Day of Judgment, personally for me, helps me the most. Because I feel like for some of us, it's like a distant memory. And you're like, yeah, that's going to happen. No, that can happen very, very soon. And a lot of us are constantly disassociating from that idea, even from the idea of death, or God forbid, bad things happening. We're like, yeah, that happens to other people, not us. May Allah protect us all, of course, Ameen. But we have to remember that Allah is in control and that he can do anything at any time, and that we need to constantly remind ourselves of why we're here. Yes, be the best you, strive to be the best you for you and your family, but do take a step back and remember about the hereafter, because that is a very, 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 that's the most important thing to keep in mind. The next thing I'll tell you is to practice mindfulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout your day. You really got to pause and just have that internal dialogue of remembering that Allah is watching you and Allah is near, especially when you're tempted with, losing your patience, screaming, doing something that might make you act out. If your kids are stressing you out, your work is stressing you out, you want to just say a snarky comment back, and there's just like so much rage within you, or even when you're feeling anxious, you need to take a step back and remind yourself that, hold on, there's an akhirat I'm working for Jannah, I'm working for that pleasure of Allah. If I act out right now, is that the most pleasurable thing to Allah? That's something I try my best to do, even at home. I know sometimes with your parents and your family, it's hard to live with family sometimes. It's like a lot of things going on at once. Everyone has their own lives. Sometimes it could be overstimulating. I get it. Like, it can be a lot at times for people, but you have to remember that your family is a blessing. It's a gift from Allah, and you should be good to your family first before anyone and anything, right? What's the point of you being all good and sweet out there, and then you're lashing out at the people at home who fed you and took care of you for all of these years? Finally, one of the things that I love to do, and there's two ways you could go about this, is keep a quote pleasing Allah journal, which is each night you write down one thing you did just for his sake, not for praise, not for results, for anyone else, but for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake. You'll begin to crave those moments, and your heart will naturally start filtering decisions through that lens of his pleasure. The other thing I like to do, and this I feel like kind of helps indirectly, is I keep a jar or like a little book, like a little folder or something that says du'as that are accepted. And I like to write down little du'as that are accepted throughout my day and put it in there, right? This kind of helps recircle and remind you how powerful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. He's always listening. He's always there. He's always just with us. And when we are going through this dunya that constantly is, it's like a mile a minute. There's so many things to consume and do, and it's constantly one thing to the next. I feel like grounding back and looking at all the things that he gave you is a beautiful way to remember, who he is and how powerful he is. So all in all, of course, getting that fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a lifelong journey. That's not something that you are ever going to wake up and not ever have to work on. We need to constantly continue to learn, continue to seek knowledge. We need to continue to read about the Akhirah, the Day of Judgment. Who is Allah? What is he capable of doing? Learning his 99 names, things like that. We need to constantly be in the knowledge of this deen. We cannot ever come to a point where we are complacent and we think that we have all the knowledge about this deen, because maybe at that moment you have, God forbid, become a little narrow-sided or, things like that. And we don't want to become narrow. We don't want to lose the focus that this deen is very vast. Me and you will never know it. The righteous people that came before us never completely knew this deen in its entirety. No one has all of the knowledge about this deen, right? There's so much to learn. There's so much to constantly grow with. And if at any point you feel like I know it all, that's, you might want to sit on that and think on that, because that's not something that you want to get comfortable with. That's not an idea that you want to grow. This deen has a lot for us to learn within it. And I know that in our busy lives and all the things that we have, we're just told you should fear Allah. But we need to cultivate that fear on a daily. We need to take care of that fear and keep it alive. Keep it alive in a world that tells you don't. You have to. This world will make you sacrifice your morals and your values and who you are very quickly. The very first thing you'll hear at some workplaces is like, oh, do you have to pray right now? Can you pray later? Or can't you just pray at home? And then slowly but surely, God forbid, but all 5 prayers that start to get missed. It's these slow things that start to kind of unground you from your true purpose. And we don't want to be among those that forget why they were truly made. Everything on this dunya is just a vessel. It's just a means to go through. But it is not home. This is not home. No matter how much pain you feel here, it's not home. No matter how much happiness you feel here, this is not home. Just a vessel. It's just a place to travel. And if anything, the time in our dunya is the shortest. So with that, I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts true, deep fear of Him in our hearts, the love for Him in our hearts, and a constant reminder and remembrance of His mercy and His greatness in all things that we do. Remember that this is a lifelong journey. And it starts off with small steps, small decisions, and asking yourself how you can truly please Allah in your day-to-day, making decisions that you know will be good for you in this life and inshallah in the next. And of course, if you have to decide between making a decision that might hurt you here but benefit you there, you always pick that. That is truly how we guide ourselves and ground ourselves through the little things. Inshallah, this episode was beneficial. I hope y'all are doing well. Please take care. Assalamu alaikum.